Welcome back to our channel, and we are starting our Space Ghost. This is a 3D printed figure done by Kenny May over at Moonwalker Models. He was kind enough to do this for me. Very, very kind of Kenny to do it, because this had to take some time to print up. He's good size. I would say, I don't know what scale he is. I can't get my mouth working. I need more coffee. I would say he's about 1/6 in scale, because he's about the same size as Catwoman, and she is 1/6. So you can see they're pretty close. Her base is a little taller, so she's slightly taller, but she's pretty close in size to Space Ghost. So he's about 1/6, I would say. If you would take her off the base, you'd be about the same. She's wearing heels too, so we'll go with 1/6. Just for sake of argument. So he's 1/6 in scale, so he's a good size. So we're going to be painting him in sub-assemblies. I like to use it a handle. Let's talk about, before we talk about him, let's talk about the tools we're using. It's all basic stuff. Nothing, I'm sure it's stuff everybody has. So we're using good old X-Acto for trimming. A razor saw if you need to cut anything and trim it down a little bit. I had to use a razor saw on the arm pins because they're a little too long, so I just trim a little off with the razor saw and they fit perfect, easy peasy. Sandpaper, we're using Testers, which is like a plastic coated back paper. We're using a 320, 150, and we're using good old wet and dry 280. Is this 280? Yeah, 280. So we're using, I thought it was 230, but it's 280. So we're using 280, 320, and 150 to get him, get the sanding line, or printing lines out and get them all smoothed up and filler work and all that crap. We're using sanding twigs of various grits to get in tight spots. So we got 3 of these. I would say the grits are between 200 and 300. I don't know what grit they are, but they feel like between 200 and 300. So that's that. We're using our glazing putty, which is lacquer based. You don't have to use a lacquer based putty because it has a pretty strong odor to it. I'm used to it. Even though I'm sensitive to smells. I've been using this since the early 70s, and I'm just used to it, so it doesn't bother me anymore. But if you're sensitive to lacquer based putties, I wouldn't use this. I would use either the acrylic version of this, because they make this in an acrylic version, or just get any acrylic putty, like plastic putty or Vallejo plastic putty, whatever. Yeah, I'm using this because I just prefer it. When I need to build up an area, I just prefer using this over acrylic putty, because acrylic putty is water-based and it shrinks and all that stuff. I've never had, if you use this correctly, this will not shrink. If you don't use it right, it will shrink. Yeah, I usually don't have an issue with it. So that's what I'm using. You don't have to use it. You can use whatever putty you like to use. Glue, same thing. Use whatever CA you like. I prefer Gorilla Glue, especially on something this size. I like Gorilla Glue because, well, it's pricey. It's good stuff. It's good stuff because, unlike regular CA that has a pretty brittle join, I've built figures using regular CA in the past, and I've dropped them on the floor, knocked them over or something, and I have hardwood floors, so when they hit the floor, everywhere I used super glue just shattered and the piece went flying. I had to put it all back together. With this stuff, I've had stuff hit the floor and it just bounces. It doesn't come apart. So this is good stuff, and but it's pricey. So yeah, but I just prefer using it, especially on something this size. You don't have to buy this stuff. If you like using just plain old CA, or you like using a certain brand of CA, then just continue using it on this and on or any printed kit, and you'll be okay. I just prefer this. So that's what we're using on the big guy, is a Gorilla CA. We're using 3M glazing putty. We're using sandpaper, all basic stuff to get him looking spiffy. We've got the legs glued onto the trunk. We got the trunks and the legs all blended together with the glazing putty. Primer, we're using the Duplicolor Primer Sealer. I wanted primer filler. I thought I had a can of it. I don't. So I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and use primer sealer. The good thing I like about Duplicolor primer sealer, or any Duplicolor primer, is the fact that they're a lot more tolerant in their paint to temperatures. So I can get out there on a 40 degree day and shoot this primer and it'll be okay. I've never had any issues. You really shouldn't, but I do. And I haven't had any issues with the primer. Other primers, I've tried doing that, in 40 degree weather or cold weather, and they don't turn out so well. This stuff seems to be okay. So, yeah, I'm using this on the big guy here. That's what we'll be using. And you can see, as I said earlier, we got all this primed and ready to go. The belt's a little lighter than the legs because I got more coats of primer on the legs due to the filler work. Yeah, that's what we're using for primer. So that's our tools, that's our primer, the paint, where you're going to use all craft acrylics on the big guy here. Pretty simple for Space Ghost, as you can see by the picture I have for reference as far as putting him together. He's just white, red, black, yellow, all basic primary colors. So for our white, we're not going to use a stark white, especially at this size. I'd rather, we could use a stark white, and it would be okay, a guy this size. I just don't like using pure white on anything. I use more pure white for mixing or really, really small pieces. But for something this big, we're going to go ahead and use an antique white, which is a white with just a scotch of yellow to it. I think it'll look much better than a pure, bright, stark white. So we use an antique white on the super suit. The belt, well, the buckle, and the super power cuffs, whatever, I don't remember what he called them, but the power cuffs, we're using the stop sign red, which is a medium red. I don't want an orangey kind of red. I want more of a darker little, orange with, orange. I want a red with less orange. So we're going to be using this, and that's about what I'm looking for. And this is, as I said, stop sign red. Black, we're just, black is black. Isn't that the name of the song? Black is black, I want my baby back. Yeah, it is a song. This is Delta Ceramcoat black. We'll be using that. And yellow for the cape. We might use this. It's called Sunset Yellow. I really wanted more of a school bus kind of yellow. But we could use this because if I end up priming the cape in black, and I probably will because of all the folds and stuff, we'll kind of do like a pre-shading kind of thing. This will definitely darken up the yellow. So even though this is a little brighter than what I want, the fact that we're putting it over black will probably darken it up. So we might go ahead and use this on the cape. So that's our main colors: black, yellow, off-white, red, our primary colors here. We'll be using on the big guy. And I think that's it. Is that it? Yeah, that's about it on Space Ghost. Looking pretty spiffy. Pretty cool. I'm anxious to get him on the shelf because I've been wanting Space Ghost, a model of him, for, my gosh, a long time. So, yeah, that's Space Ghost. And then, had nothing to do with Space Ghost. I got this, about 3 weeks ago, I got this in the mail. Maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't know. I can't keep track of time anymore. Got this from Dan and Tommy. They're not buttons. Tokens. Okay, there you go, tokens. Yeah, I got these from Dan and Tommy for not this year, but last year's fruit build, which I built a little Russian tank and a little Russian girl, sniper girl. This is from a couple years ago. I didn't participate this year because I was just too busy. But hopefully next year I can join in. It's not like I don't have any kits. I have plenty of deformed kits. So that's not an issue. But yeah, I did this last year. I think she's cool. I really like her. I always thought she was cool. Little sniper girl. But yeah, that's got that in the mail. So thanks Dan and Tommy for the button tokens. I keep wanting to call them buttons. Tokens. And then, yeah, I think that's it now. Yeah. I've been printing up my superheroes, the bus, with my 3D printer. I've been doing that when I have time. Which, I just put it in my printer and let it go. I don't have to sit around and look at it because most of my prints take about 7 hours to print. So, yeah. So we got, you already saw Batman, Batgirl, Mary Jane. I've done Spider-Man. These are all done with the Elegoo water-soluble resin. So I've done Spider-Man, and just did last week Lois Lane. Next will be Superman, but there's Lois Lane. She's not really Lois Lane, but I'm calling her my Lois Lane. I can remember an episode of the original Superman with George Reeves where she had a coat like this and was wearing Jimmy Olsen's hat. And when I saw this, it's like, boy, that reminds me of that episode from Superman where Lois was wearing Jimmy Olsen's hat and had a coat like this. So I thought, well, why not make her Lois Lane? So I got Superman next to print, so we'll have Superman and Lois Lane. She's pretty cool. And these are all done with the Elegoo water-soluble resin, which I have to thank Orrin over at the Captain for telling me about the Elegoo water-soluble resin. It's way easier to use, hardly has an odor to it, and so it's perfect for my case. I think that is it now, because right now I'm just jawing for no rhyme or reason. Yeah, that's it. Okay, take care. We'll see you.